Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims, to day 260 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. Another 10 days down, and I don't know if you've noticed, but we are creeping very close to day 265, which will put us 100 days until the end of this year together. So today, Sister Faustina is going to seems like she's worrying about having her brother come and visit her. It doesn't really say why she's kind of anxious about it, but it's a kind of a curious little section that we're going to read from about why he's coming to visit and what she thinks about it and how she's kind of reacting to it. And then the last part is what we're really going to focus on, because she's going to share some details about what it's like to work at the gate. And I mentioned before that I think this is where they receive people who are looking for alms, and she's going to confirm that that's what she is doing. And she's going to kind of contrast how she handles the poor that come to the door and how another sister handles the poor that come to the door. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about how we treat the poor in our life. So we will be reading from Notebook 4, numbers 1278 through 1283. I receive Holy Communion in the manner of the angels, so to speak. My soul is filled with God's light and nourishes itself from Him. My feelings are as if dead. This is a purely spiritual union with God. It is a great predominance of spirit over nature. The Lord gave me knowledge of the graces which He has been constantly lavishing on me. This light pierced me through and through, and I came to understand the inconceivable favors that God has been bestowing on me. I stayed in my cell for a long act of thanksgiving, lying face down on the ground and shedding tears of gratitude. I could not rise from the ground because whenever I tried to do so, God's light gave me new knowledge of His grace. It was only at the third attempt that I was able to get up. As His child, I felt that everything the Heavenly Father possessed was equally mine. He Himself lifted me from the ground up to His heart. I felt that everything that existed was exclusively mine, but I had no desire for it all, because God alone is enough for me. Today, I learned with what aversion the Lord comes to a certain soul in Holy Communion. He goes to that heart as to a dark prison, to undergo torture and affliction. I kept begging His pardon and offering atonement for the offense. The Lord made known to me that I would see my brother, Stanley, but I could not understand how this would happen or why he should come to visit me. I knew that God had given him the grace of a religious vocation, but why should he be coming to visit me? However, I put aside these thoughts and believed that if the Lord had given me to know He would come, that was enough for me. I fixed my thoughts on God, putting aside every preoccupation with creatures and entrusting everything to the Lord. When the same poor people come to the gate a second time, I treat them with greater gentleness, and I do not let them see that I know they have been here before. I do this in order not to embarrass them. And then they speak to me freely about their troubles and needs. Although Sister N tells me that this is not the way to deal with beggars and slams the door in their faces. When she is not there, I treat them as my Master would. Sometimes more is given when giving nothing than when giving much in a rude manner. Often the Lord gives me interior knowledge concerning the persons I meet at the gate. One pitiable soul wanted to tell me a bit about herself. Taking advantage of the opportunity, I made her understand in a delicate way the miserable condition of her soul. She went away with a better disposition. It's so hard to imagine that a sister at a convent would actually treat beggars this way. But we treat beggars this way sometimes too, don't we? And, nuns in convents are, susceptible to sin just as much as we are out here in the world. And I know that when you work with the poor and the needy, you get kind of callous and you can tend to be kind of jaded about the whole thing because you see a lot of uh, abuses, a lot of people taking advantage of things, and it starts to kind of make you see things in, like I said, a very jaded light. When I worked at the Salvation Army Domestic Violence and Rape Crisis Program, I did see a lot of this. Not every Salvation Army has a domestic violence and rape crisis program associated with it, but because this one did, I did get to see the inner workings of, a place like that that offers help to those in need. And I was pretty impressed. They have a very good organization and they really do try their best to help people in need. One of the things I was most impressed with was they had some apartments that they kept open for anybody who maybe lost their job or family or whatever that were down and out, and they could come and stay in those apartments if they needed to, but they had to take budgeting courses with the Salvation Army and they had to pay a little bit of money, so it wasn't complete charity, working within their budget and everything. And they designed a plan to get them up and on their feet and out the door so that it wasn't just a continual living situation. And I was impressed with that because I think that's truly helping people. It's letting them have some dignity by paying you a little bit of money and teaching them how to finance and work with their money that they have to make it, go as far as it can, and setting goals for them so that this isn't a place where they always stay. So I was pretty impressed with that. I didn't know that that was something that the Salvation Army did. Everybody knows they have a thrift store usually, and that they show up at disaster responses, which, our Salvation Army did do that, but that was another aspect I was unaware of. But I did see a lot of needy people. And even in working with the Domestic Violence and Rape Crisis Program, you tend to get, lower income people. It's an interesting dynamic that we had. We would be taking women out of domestic violence situations, sometimes men, and putting them in a safe house if that's where they needed to go. And if they were deciding to leave their abuser and move them up and on into their own apartment or whatever, we would help furnish their homes through the thrift store. We would help get them clothing if they were going on an interview or they just needed clothing because they just left in the middle of the night and didn't take anything with them because it was what was safest. And so we would provide a lot of things. And for the most part, most people were very, very grateful and surprised that we provided, so many services to them. And it was really great to be able to provide those things for people. And, one of the other aspects of our program was counseling. And I was, mostly a counselor and an advocate. So I didn't spend my time in the thrift store, working there or anything like that. I did go over there to get things for people, but I didn't work there. And so I spent most of my time counseling. And because our services were free, again, most of our clients were from the lower income, spectrum side of things. And there was no set amount of visits they could have. Usually, if we saw that somebody was beyond our help, we would try to get them to somebody who could possibly help them. I had one lady who had multiple personalities, and that was beyond my skill level. And so I really needed to get her to, a psychologist and, a doctor. I needed to get her somewhere where she could get some better help than with me. So anyway, a lot of the people would come pretty frequently for counseling with me, just to come. And one of my coworkers, she would get upset with me. She would say, how many times have they come to see you? I'm like, I don't even know, maybe 30 times. I'm like, well, you probably aren't able to help them. They need to go somewhere else. And I was like, well, a lot of the times they're just coming to talk to me. She's like, well, that's not the service that we provide. I was like, yeah, I know, but I think they need it. And if I if I don't have anybody at that time coming in for a counseling session that's an immediate need, why not see them? What else am I going to do? I mean, I had lots of other things to do, but sometimes my calendar was pretty free and I didn't have a lot of counseling sessions. And they were people that were so poor in spirit. And so many of them just wanted someone to listen to them and to hear them out. Somebody to just process their feelings and their thoughts and their life with somebody who was listening to them. And, because they couldn't afford it, did they take advantage of that? Maybe, I guess. Took advantage of our free services. But I didn't really care because I was there, I was available, and why not? Maybe I could help keep them from, going down a bad path, or maybe I could just show them a bit of kindness. And so often what happens in these kinds of situations with poor people, whether they're truly begging for like material things, or if they're begging for our time, if it's a soul that's poor in spirit, or they're lonely, sometimes they can be needy, clingy, kind of desperate sometimes, and it can wear on us. I know that. I did have a few very clingy clients, and it can get to be a burden. It can be trying, but I always tried to greet them with a smile and, show them that I was happy that they were there. I didn't ever want them to feel that. Because when you start opening yourself up to people and they feel like you're a safe place to come, they will open themselves up to you and they'll be more willing to listen to any correction that you have. The longer I saw some of my clients who stopped coming to me because they were in immediate danger or anything like that, the longer I saw them and talked with them and counseled them, the more they opened up just about their lives. And I started to see the bigger picture of their life. And so I was able to offer them some just real world practical help that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do. And it allowed me to see where I could help them in other ways besides the abuse. Maybe getting them into a junior college, helping them, go on an interview and do well at them. So many people just aren't coached in that area. And so I really enjoyed reading what Sister Faustina had to say today. It's so Christ-like, the way that she is dealing with these poor people. They come to the gate a second time, and she treats them with greater gentleness. She says, I do not let them see that I know that they were here before, because I don't want to embarrass them. That's such a true and loving heart, isn't it? And then, I got kind of annoyed at Sister N. I was like, what the heck, man? Don't slam the door in people's faces. I know people take advantage. I've dealt with that. But there is a way to do it without coming off as a rude jerk. And she even says, sometimes more is given when giving nothing than when giving much in a rude manner. And that's very wise words right there. Sometimes if we were just giving our attention, maybe we aren't even giving material things, if we're just listening, then we give a lot to people. But the last part is what I'm trying to get to. She says, often the Lord gives me an interior knowledge concerning the persons I meet at the gate. One pitiable soul wanted to tell me a bit about herself. Taking advantage of the opportunity, I made her understand in a delicate way the miserable condition of her soul. She went away with a better disposition. So because Sister Faustina had been kind and gentle and not trying to embarrass this person felt comfortable opening up to Sister Faustina. And also Sister Faustina got interior knowledge, which I never had that, grace, but she does. So she understands the state of their soul, but this person then opens up about herself and tells her about herself. And because there's now a trust form there, Sister Faustina has the opportunity to say, hey, your soul is in danger. I don't know what correction she gave her or what she told her to do, but she says she went away with a better disposition. Somebody cared, somebody listened, and a life was changed possibly. I don't know what ended up happening to this person, but for that moment, that person felt loved. And so I think that's a really good lesson for all of us is sometimes we just got to be patient with people. Sometimes we just got to be gentle with those that drive us nuts and just be a person that people can come to, that they can open up. They feel free to open up to us so that we might be able to better help them. So be that person. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I'll see you back here for day 261. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.